I hope we're all feeling well-rested and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed here. We are going to be starting our next presentation. This one is the floral coach. Amy Balsters is going to be talking about how to build better bouquets. So come on down here, and while everybody's sitting and getting comfy, again, let me please just do a couple housekeeping things. We do have our live auction that, again, will be closing after the luncheon as opposed to at 3:30. So keep that in mind. Check that out. We've got a lot of really, really great supplies, and also some of the pieces from Jody McLeod's Teleflora presentation will be available there. So check that out. Make sure you do that. Put a little pin in the map by that area in near the DeLorean to show us where you came from and where your shop is, and also graffiti a box so that we can send those back to our wholesalers and spread some little floral love here. We got a couple of cool little cutesy things going on, but also thank you so much to all of our sponsors, including Cal Flowers, the American Floral Endowment, Crockett Myers and Associates, Flower Shop Network, Teleflora, FTD, Smithers Oasis, Carthauser, Krieger, Details, Reliant Ribbon, Dorn, Kennecott, and all of you for coming and making all of this possible here. We really, really do appreciate all of you truly and dearly. We also appreciate the Wisconsin Florists Foundation, who is sponsoring this presentation today. So without further ado and without listening to more of me babbling, let's give a giant round of applause here for the one, the only floral coach, Amy Balsters.
Can you hear me? I don't think this is working. Hello, hello.
There you go.
We had a little dress mishap back here, so we're good, we're good. I thought to myself this morning, I packed a dress, and I have to be on a stage program with a microphone pack, so we were finagling that. So welcome. Anyway, you get it if you're a woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Amy Balsters, and my business is called The Floral Coach, and it is such an honor to be with you on this balmy Wisconsin cold day. I am so thankful for the generosity of the Wisconsin Florist Foundation, who very generously sponsored me to be here. I'm not affiliated with a company or an organization, so they reached into their pockets and enabled me to be here today with you and share with you a little bit about my passion around bouquet making. So the other sponsor for my program is Bill Doran, and I have to tell you, they have gone above and beyond. I definitely had a scramble moment. Some of you were in my hands-on class yesterday. Thank you for coming. I hope it was valuable to you. And we had some scrambling to do with some product, and they went really early in the morning and shuffled through and found me what I needed to make happen. So not every wholesaler is willing to be flexible and accommodating. So I don't know if you're in the room, Bill Doran, but thank you for your generosity and making my program just being an amazing sponsor. So just a brief little snippet about me and what I do. So I started in the floral industry in 2001. I was kind of a wayward teenager making some bad life choices, and I stumbled across this floral design class, and I just fell in love immediately. This sort of tactile, artistic venture was just what I felt like I was made for. So I ended up going to floral design school for 2 years, got an associate's degree in floral design and shop management, started working in retail and special events, and I had this classical training that was an incredible foundation. But as the years went on, like many of us have experienced, I picked up some bad habits. Am I right? Yeah. Some overgreening, some overstuffing, some overbreaking. Lots of these things just kind of come with the nature of repetition. You're doing the same thing over and over. We kind of get stuck in a rut. And I just found that I was very stagnant and stale in my work, and I was making a lot of mistakes along the way, even though I had this really good foundation. Eventually, after running a lot of other people's businesses and working in other businesses, I eventually opened my own business in 2012, and I discovered that the industry style had really changed. I had been doing a lot of roundy-moundy things for many, many years, had that style down, but when I re-entered and tried to start my own business, the style had become more loose and airy. I'm sure you've heard that term. more gardeny. And I thought, well, I can do this garden style, like you see it growing in nature. That should feel really like intuitive, right? Quickly discovered that everything I made looked like a ball with arms. Maybe you've experienced this, right? Little antennas sticking out of your orb, okay? And what I really went on this sort of journey to figure out how to make loose and airy, asymmetrical, open form style designs. And it was extremely difficult. I had no idea how to achieve this look. It just, everything I made felt either too structured or it felt too form shaped, like a ball. And so I'd go to these famous florists, these Instagram stars, thinking they had all the answers. And oftentimes I left these workshops feeling really frustrated and disappointed. Maybe some of you can relate. You've gone to an educational experience, you've spent your hard-earned money, and you're like, wow, they didn't really answer a question, or I got a lot of answers like, well, you just gotta feel your way through it, or, you know, just keep practicing. And I didn't really get these concrete answers. I wanted a process, I wanted steps. I wanted you to tell me, step 1, step 2, step 3, this is how you build great bouquets. This is how you build loose and airy work. And I just didn't find answers where I was looking. And I went to this conference years ago. I've been to many of these conferences over my 20-something career in flowers, and I watched this very simple presentation of this man who just made a very quick little spiral in his hand. And it triggered something in me. I thought, wow, I learned that so many years ago. Why am I not doing that? I'm over here fussing with all these weird mechanics and breaking stems and overstuffing things. I wonder if there's some value there in the spiral technique for making different styles of bouquets. I thought, well, no, it's just so old school. It's so traditional. That's how you make round things, right? So over several years of practicing and really trying to find a process, I discovered that the European spiral technique was actually this incredible technique that offered everything I was looking for. It allowed me to be versatile in the shapes and forms I was trying to make. It allowed me to make cascades. It allowed me to do installation mechanics. It allowed me to have nice, tidy, professional handles, right? Nothing is a greater sort of like pit in my stomach when I see a bouquet delivered on Instagram to a bride. And the handle is a mess. And no judgment if some of you are still working out your bouquet mechanics. I hope today you will join me in the path forward to better bouquets. But these sort of tree trunk handles with lots of messy stems, I want to encourage you to think about this for a moment. When you hand a bride a bouquet, and she has to hold it with 2 hands, and it's literally this kind of network of chaos, what does that communicate about your skill level? What is her experience like when she has to use all of her bicep muscles to hold this thing, right? So there is a better way. And over many years, I've been teaching this to florists. I mostly teach professionals now. And I focus on teaching professional floristry skills, like the European spiral technique. And sometimes people hem and haw, oh, I already do that, or that doesn't really work. But I want to encourage you that the spiral technique is can be as shallow as a puddle, where you can just make it very quickly in retail, and I'm going to demo some quick things for you to take home to your shops and studios. But I also have found that it's sort of an ocean of knowledge as well, that you can keep exploring the depths of how this technique works. You can make very interesting large spirals, you can make very asymmetrical structural bouquets, all with the spiral technique. So over the years, I've developed a process of teaching this to designers, and not to pat myself on the back because I think the technique is what is empowering, but I have heard from dozens and dozens and dozens of designers around the country who have told me that this transformed their business. And I think that's a shocking statement, right? We hear from accountants, we hear from, what's your ordering process? But what I think is compelling about that statement is that when we invest in understanding good technique, it can actually transform our business. We don't need to use so much greenery. We don't need to overstuff our designs. When we rely on good technique, we are operating more efficiently. Everybody in your shop or studio should know how to do this technique for Mother's Day, for weddings, for events. It's as simple as my 11-year-old can do it, and it's complicated enough that just this morning I was wrestling with one of these tricky bouquets that I was going to show you. So it can still be a very complex technique, but you can also use it to apply to every part of your business. And I want to talk through some of those things with you this morning. Cool? Okay, so you can tell that I like to talk. It's a good thing that I'm a teacher now. And I'm going to be checking in over here on myself and keeping an eye on my phone. So I'm not on Instagram or looking at something other than checking in on my time. So just with a raising of hands, how many of you work in retail? Great. And how many of you just do weddings and events? Like 2, 1. Maybe 2. Okay, so the majority of the room works in retail, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about both and how you can apply some of these techniques to both. So I'm also going to be talking about trends that I've seen in the wedding industry, that things that are definitely we're moving towards. They may not be here yet. I live in Virginia. I'm just outside of DC. I see some of the trends, but we're still more of a, I would say, kind of a classic styling there. There isn't as much of the trends in the DC area. But I will tell you what's happening, because I think that before we get started, you might be tempted to sit there while I stand up here and say, well, I would never do that. I would never make that. I would never put those two things together. I would never, right? That's okay. I've sat there many times too saying that. But what I want to encourage you to think about is when I started my wedding business, what I saw is I put out what I thought everybody wanted, whites and greens, blushes, it's what I was making. And what I found is that I was getting really tired of that, and I was not competitive. That's what everybody was making. And it wasn't until I started to rework my portfolio, create different work that I thought was more compelling and exciting and interesting. This took some investment in money and time to take photos and build out this nice portfolio, but a significant change happened. I started putting out new things, and voila, I started attracting new clients that were interested in that new thing. So it's easy to get in a rut. We're trying to pay our bills. We have employees to pay. We have overhead to pay. The economy is struggling. And it's easy to think, well, I'm just stuck. Nobody would buy that. I could never make that. Blah, 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 right? And I honor that. I respect that. However, I think as designers, it's important to remember that we are in a visual business, and we can't expect clients to come in with fully baked ideas, really creative, fun things. Like, we have to show them what's possible before they can sometimes envision that, right? So I would encourage you that if you find yourself saying, well, I would never make that, or that would never work in my market, to consider, have you tried it? Have you actually made it? Have you put it on Instagram? Have you put it on your website? And to take a very honest and hard look at your portfolio, to look at what you're putting out. Because if you only put out white hydrangea balls, and there's nothing wrong with hydrangea balls, you just make them and you take your check and you go on with your life, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But take an honest, hard look at your portfolio. If you're not showing color, and you're complaining that you're not getting any colorful weddings, you need to go make them. Put together a bouquet, put together a design, show what's possible. And when you tweak and change your portfolio, I truly believe you will start attracting more of those clients. Cool? So my ask of you is just to approach this with an open mind, take what you can, leave the rest, but hopefully there'll be some things here that will be helpful to you. Okay, let's get started. So, and this is interactive. Yesterday, the chairs were set up differently. So I told my amazing assistant, Alice, by the way, who's been a godsend and a huge help to me the last couple days, thank you, Alice, that we were gonna pass out bouquets. But now the tables are a little different. So we may still do that if you guys are down. But I wanna get started just by a quick retail chat here. So some of you, I was talking to Sam in the room. She's gonna be presenting. She has done a beautiful plant presentation. I cannot wait for you to see it, so don't miss it. It is unbelievable. And she was telling me she does about 140 weddings, I think, a year. And she was telling me that she agreed that the trends are changing a bit. So we still have garden style, but more and more brides are asking for no greenery, okay? They want color, focus, they want texture. This is just a trend that I'm seeing everywhere. So less and less greens. If they are doing greenery, a lot of times it's less eucalyptus, it's a little bit more tropical foliages, things like that. We're gonna talk about this trend here at the end, but I'm seeing a lot more artful, structural pieces, more open form, lots of stacked and terraced, and I'm gonna show you just very quickly at the end about how to use the parallel technique. So we're mostly gonna talk about spiral, But the parallel technique is a great way to build that style, and I'll show you here in just a minute. But in a retail shop or weddings, and this really kind of works for both, what you can do, wow, just stuff flying look at this, wow, off to a great start. Okay, so using more color, well, Amy, that's expensive. What do we do? Greenery fills the space, right? Well, what you can do is use filler. And I see filler being used in a different way now. I don't see it necessarily in your traditional sense, but I really try to focus on the color story. So I'm also, bouquets and color theory are my two passions. And if you came to my class yesterday, we talked a lot about color theory. But one of the things that I do is really focus on finding a similar color of filler to the flowers in the design. So I'm trying to create sort of that repetition. So I use a lot of filler, and what I do is I remove these bottom laterals, like so. Limonium, great. Status, great. Coming up in very traditional flower shops, I sort of had this like disgust for status and like anything filler related, like, oh, I don't want to use it. But it's actually being used in totally different ways now in the floral industry. It's really being used in mass. It's being used as sort of this carpet of color and texture. So I want you to think about filler a little differently. If you just think about filler as filling space, that's one way to use it. But a lot of times now we're seeing it in mass and installations, on big arbors, and also in bouquet making. So what I do is I take off all of these lower laterals, because I really don't, as some of you may know, when you're making a bouquet, you don't want anything here in the binding point, right? We want clean, clean, clean stems. So I'm going to remove these. Now this never goes on the floor, right? This isn't trash, this is money that you paid for in the stem. So I'm going to separate those shorter laterals because they're actually going to be utilized as the base of our bouquet. So I'm going to take these long stems, and these can go in funeral work. These can go in tall arrangements, right? And then I'm going to take these little short pieces and clean off the stems. So again, nothing in the binding point. Stack them together, spiral them. And then this is going to be the base of my bouquet, right? And then I'm going to come in here and layer. And I'm going to do a demo for you in a little bit of that, in a little bit more detail. But you can do the same thing with a stem of status. You're going to remove these bottom laterals, save these, use this for something else because you have all that stem length, so use it higher if needed. And then use these lower in the bouquet to layer your more expensive blooms on top. Cool? Okay. So in this quick little color hand tie, what I did, this was about one bunch of limonium, and I don't have obviously any other greens. I put a few little pieces of peach stalk. This is great as like a discount thing. If you've got little bits hanging out, use it as a foundation of color, right? Then I put in some carnations and some stock, nothing overly expensive. And then I call this kind of like my meat and potatoes. The limonium, the stock, the status, these aren't uber expensive. I have one garden rose. I have 2 or 3 lisianthus. I've got a couple of those caviar floaters. So I call my expensive blooms the caviar. I want them to float up top. I want them to be seen. So I'm creating these little layers, and this is very stylistically what's on trend. So this could work as a bridal, this could work as a bridesmaid, but it also could work in retail. You can make this, spiral it very quickly, bind it off, tie it off, and stick it in a vase, and you're good to go. Now, oftentimes when I use the spiral to vase method, I always tend to end with a little bit of line. So I'll come in here and just add some height to it. I know yesterday, Jody McLeod, I don't know where my floral knife is. I do use a floral knife. I think I left it back there. Had mentioned that it's important to have height in an arrangement, and I agree. From a proportion standpoint and a scale, oh, thank you, Alice. If you don't know Alice, which I'm sure most of you do, you really should, because she is such a wealth of knowledge, and you have her here, kind of. No, you're in Michigan. But she's amazing. You should really pick her brain. So you can take something very simple, group and cluster just a couple of, and terrace a couple of line flowers, and you're good to go. Same with the yellow. Yellow is definitely in. I'm seeing it in really, really high-end weddings. I love yellow. It does not just for Easter. People love yellow. It's bright, it's happy, it's cheerful. They love sunflowers. You could put one sunflower in here. You don't need 5 sunflowers with lemon leaf or leather leaf. You can just do a concentration of color. I'm just looking at it myself, sorry. You can just do this concentration of color. Do you guys want me to pass this around? Would you be interested in seeing it? Maybe? Yes, no? Okay. If you're interested, Alice will let it. Maybe we'll do this one on this side. I'm like a show and tell girl. I have an 11-year-old and very much in parenting mode, so we're learning lots of things right now. Let me just rubber band that real quick. Wow, we are just falling apart up here. Okay. I threw a quick rubber band on there, so it's not real tight, but you'll get the gist, just to see the different layers and so forth. Okay. If you work in retail, you do likely holidays, right? I just did a Valentine's Day class recently talking about production. So my background is in high volume production for like luxury weddings and events where we were doing 8, 10 huge weddings every weekend. And I had to learn to become extremely fast or you don't get hired. And I started doing a lot of team training at flower shops, and I'd go in and I'd see how inefficient people worked. You know, they'd grab a stem and then they'd kind of flutter over to the cooler and they'd kind of look at the cooler for a while. Oh, I forgot tree fern, and they're over here, and it's like, okay. So there's something to be gleaned from working in production. And part of that is how can I get what's in this bucket as fast as possible into this design? And this applies obviously around holidays, but especially if you have busy weddings and events and you're short-staffed, your job is to get it from point A to point B as artfully and efficiently and profitably as possible, right? That's what we do as florists. You have to get it out of the bucket into something sellable, right? So we were talking briefly yesterday about greenery bouquets, and this is something very easy you can do around the holidays or just to have in your shop if you need to pre-work. So I buy a variety of different greens. I love a huckleberry. If you're not a huckleberry fan, big huckleberry fan. Lots of loose and airy, lots of really pretty, very long lasting. And I love that the green is just ever so slightly different than your typical myrtle or your nagi. And it offers a little bit of contrast among those very dark green blooms. So I clean up all my stems. I do this in batch work. So you get out your whole bucket and you strip down pieces and you have a big pile of cleaned, ready, and processed. And by cleaned and processed, I mean I want about a 2/3 on the stem that has some floral material, greenery, and then about a 1/3 of the stem clean. Remember, clean stems. We're professionals, right? We're not pulling stuff out of buckets and making a mess. So I'm going to demonstrate this for you in literally like 10 seconds. But head to the left, stem to the right into the binding point. And all I'm going to do is continue to add a little bit of tree fern for volume, a little bit of myrtle for height and for that linear kind of central part, a little bit of nagi that's going to just add some body. And I'm just alternating as I go. I want to encourage you to consider clustering your ingredients, pre-clustering. So when you put something in, consider putting 1 or 2 of them in. And then I just grab the bottoms of the stems and rotate it around and continue to add head to the left, stem to the right, into the binding point. And I'm going to keep my calculus for the end because I want it to sort of frame this bouquet up. I'm putting body into it. You know, this isn't like I'm overly thinking stem placement. I'm just kind of getting the body of this built. And at the end, I can make adjustments. Oftentimes, designers, we really are thinking too much about what's happening, and I want you to think about getting 60, 70, 80% of it in your hand before you ever make an adjustment. It's going to save you so much time because there's no point in chasing every little stem and trying to fix it's not Oasis. We're not placing it and it stays put, right? We're sometimes so used to using Oasis that in bouquet making we panic when something moves. I think we have to get a little bit more fluid about that process. So trust the spiral. This is the technique. Your hand is not holding it. The technique is actually holding it. The mechanic is holding it. The fact that you're building this helix is actually holding it together. See, I can set it down, I can walk away, I can answer the phone. I'm not panicked, I'm not overly taping it, I'm not using some crazy armature. I can just pick it right up and we're off to the races. So the spiral is what's holding this together. Now I can make adjustments. I can lift and lower, move things around, and we're good to go, okay? So I like to use rubber bands. But if you don't want to cut your stems too short, oops, I forgot my chenille stem. Alice, will you grab my chenille stems for me back there? My chenille stem, I think somehow maybe they're in that bag. I thought I grabbed them. Alice will run and get those. So clean this up, just a nice even cut. You can leave it long, but I want to make sure everything's in water. You can also do a little rubber band, and this is very useful. So I have the true binding point of this bouquet is where your thumb is, not where your fingers are. That pressure point is where you need to bind. If you bind above that, the bouquet is going to collapse into itself. It's going to get tighter, right? If you bind below that, what happens? Loosey-goosey, right? All the stems come apart. So your thumb is the answer. So when you go to bind, whether you use tape or rubber bands or wire, it doesn't matter, you're going to place it underneath your thumb, directly under your thumb. So I'm going to just use this rubber band real quick, and then I'll show you with the chenille stem. So you can take a rubber band up a hardy stem under the thumb, come around it once or twice, and then just refine that stem, and you're good to go. Now, this is a great base, right? If you had 10 or 15 of these ready to go on the holidays, you could actually pre-do this with your wax flower, your status, all of your filler could already be in here. So customer comes in, they say they want a $65 vase arrangement. It's a little big for $65, but you have your vase prepped and ready. You take maybe a small or medium-sized hand tie of greens, or a large one. You have 2 different buckets. You take it out, you clip the rubber band off, boom, your greens are ready to go. So you add in your flowers, you add in your line, couple of roses, and it took you maybe 60 seconds to do that, right? A little different, right, than pulling out a vase, saying, okay, let me go to the cooler, let me get out my, and you're rifling through buckets, trying to get your greens out, and you're like, oh, I forgot the blank, that's so inefficient. So how can you make your life faster and easier to have these prepped and ready to go? If they don't sell, no big deal. You take the rubber band off, you put this in a funeral piece, you put this you can use this as an installation mechanic, right? Zoop, you just zip tie this bad boy right onto a structure. You can make a beautiful long cascading bouquet and use it in funeral work right on a casket. I have a retail florist friend in Virginia that does that. She makes these gorgeous hand ties, and they just buy them to lay on a casket. So there's some really creative and interesting ways that you can do this. And use up whatever greens you have. I think tree ferns, springeri, deflexus, all those that have a little bit of legginess, instant airiness, right? Have a little line, have a little body, have something to frame it, and you're good to go. Okay. Any questions? I think we're taking questions, right? Okay. Just check in here on my time. Good. Okay, so next is what I call the cooler clean out. So cottage garden is still very much a vibe, and some of us, I was talking to Sam in the workroom yesterday, and she said she gets a lot of brides who are like, oh yes, I want like just wildflower, and we all know what that means, which it means whatever in her mind is a wildflower bouquet, because that could literally be like peonies and roses. Like it literally is just up for grabs on what she thinks it is. So we need to ask some clarifying questions. Wildflower to me is a lot of line and texture and filler. It's not necessarily like a lot of mass blooms. So I like to make sure that I'm clarifying wildflower is lots of texture and see all these airy lines and sort of gathered and picked from a field look, versus like a ball of hydrangeas and peonies. Like that is not really a wildflower. So this is a great hack if you have somebody who likes this look, there's always somebody who prefers a more natural look, is to just take little bits and pieces of what's left in the cooler, especially if you have something already cut down kind of short, like we talked about with short filler. So take little bits of filler. I literally walked around my little workspace yesterday, and I had a little bit of pink limonium, and I had 2 solidago, right? And I had a little bit of this and a little bit of that. The trick with this look is to create still some repetition. So I don't want to have purple in here, and pink, and white, and yet you can. starts to look a little messy. So I had a little bit of white statice, I had a little bit of this Orlea, which is so beautiful, it kind of looks like an airier Queen Anne's lace, and some Scabiosa pods. I just kind of picked through buckets, if you will, to create this wildflower little look. Now, whatever's left in the cooler, you can add to it. And what's nice about this is it doesn't have to feel so pastel. If you've got 1 or 2 stems of blue delphinium, well, let's put them in. There's other little blue in here, so I can add, and I'm just going right down through the top of my spiral and twisting and loosening my hand a bit and twisting it, and terracing them just a bit, rotating it. And then I have this really bright orange fuchsia, this really bright orange, red-orange freesia. And I thought, well, you know, if I just have this one open poppy, which is very wildflower, very popular flower, especially with wedding work. And I don't need a ton of ingredients. I can just add a little bit of caviar to my meat and potatoes. Maybe 2 of these, just for a little bit more impact on the color. And it doesn't take much to really quickly elevate it into something. Maybe it gets 1 rogue ranunculus, right? And again, I'm just really gently softening my hand and layering this in. There's a lot of things out there I've seen about bouquet making that you need to just tape it and so much control. And I have no mechanics on this, nothing. See, I could just lay it down. Isn't that amazing? That's the beauty of the spiral, is it just allows us all this flexibility to lift and lower. And I just think it's transformative, especially if you feel like you wrestle with bouquets a lot or you feel kind of overwhelmed when you have to make a bouquet, especially in this style. So I also love a good chenille stem. I just place it over the top of the binding point where my thumb is at. I take the 2 little tails like this, give it a little twist, and gravity kind of does the job for me. And now it's bound enough so I can put it back in its vase, let it hydrate, and I can come back to it and secure it more carefully if it's going in a vessel or if it's going to be a hand tie. Should we pass this around too? Feel free to untie it. Lift and lower, play with it. You can take it apart if you want. Just go for it. Okay. Clean up my space here. Okay. I want to show you a Lysianthus trick. So some of us love Lysianthus, and some of us hate it. Oh, do I have my plain stem? Oh, here it is, okay. Can you tell I haven't slept much? I have a partying neighbor. It's been a little rough at night. They're having a lot of fun. So Lysianthus in bouquets, I know I'm gonna break some of your hearts today, but I wanna encourage you that in bouquet making to consider removing these little buds. I know, I felt the pain. I heard the gasp, the pearl clutching. Okay, let me just, it's okay. You don't have to do it. I'm just painting you a picture, okay? So Lysianthus, I get it. Like it looks sort of weedy and like the buds, oh my God, the buds, okay. But they're lime green, notice that, right? And the color, I ordered brown Lysianthus, very popular, very expensive, very hard to get, but it's very popular. It also goes with every color, which is kind of amazing about brown Lysianthus. This is what it looks like. Okay. If there isn't lime green in my color palette, I'm actually shifting the color story, right? And you might not think that's a big deal, but when you don't have a lot of real estate in a bouquet, it actually really changes the whole color story, and it can really impact the look of a bouquet. So I want you just to consider when you're making a bridal or a bridesmaid and lime green isn't in the palette, just take them off. Just consider it, okay? Then, once you take them off, it doesn't mean you're throwing them in the trash, right? You can make a boutonniere, make a flower crown, put them in a tiny little vase and sell them in the cooler as like bud special, right? But what you can do is reflex them and they look like this. Okay, so thank you. Who said that? Judith said that. So we went from this to this. See a difference? It looks like a poppy. I think it kind of looks like a hibiscus, which we would never use, right? So in bouquet making, what I'm doing is editing my material. I'm refining it and refining it and refining it and refining it, reflexing things open, removing excess product and material to expose the part that's really valuable. And the same stem to me looks a lot more valuable because I would rather put this in a bouquet. Oh, it's over there. Then this. This is more of a line flower, and this side profile of Lisianthus does nothing for me, versus this, which becomes like a fake ranunculus or something airy or something people don't even recognize. So I encourage you to practice this. I know your heart might suffer taking these off, but just try it. Just give it a try. Oh, absolutely. What did you say? Oh my gosh, I'm dropping everything. Yeah, please help yourself. Now these are a little bit sadsies, a little dehydrated, so don't judge the sadness of it. But I have a bucket, I think, still left over too. If somebody wants to try it, go for it. You want to be very careful with reflexing Lisianthus. You don't want to manhandle it like a carnation or a rose. It's delicate. You need to be careful in the reflexing process. Okay, I am so running out of time. So many things. So this might be really ugly to you, or you might love this. But this color palette is actually really trending. So cherry red is in, which is kind of like, I think, a lot, because red feels like a lot of things to us. As florists, we're like, bleh, Valentine's, right? But red is really trendy, and what I love about this is that it is such a bold color. It awakens your senses. It's a warm color. It is like fire. So when you pair it with something like a soft lavender, you get this really interesting contrast, okay? So I wanted to demonstrate an interesting bridal perspective that I'm seeing more and more of, which is a lot of anthurium. And because it's winter time, my anthurium are like, one like disintegrated in my hand yesterday. So don't judge the anthurium. They didn't do anything wrong. But I did still want to use them because they're very popular and they're not going anywhere, right? People want them. They want them in brown, they want them in green, they want them in white. And so they're tricky to use. My recommendation is that you over-order and charge the client for them, because you're not going to run down to this, I don't know the grocery stores here, the Safeway, the Hy-Vee, the whatever, and find a bunch of anthurium like you can with roses or carnations. So you need to have more built into your budget, because they're going to break, they're going to crease, they're going to bruise, and yes, you can spray paint them, but like, well, they look different when you spray paint them, I think. So I always recommend like ordering multiple extra stems, because the reality is you don't need that many. They're a form flower, they need to float above other things, so you're not gonna fill a whole bouquet with them. You need like 2, right, to really make the impact. So I know I have some juicy stuff in here. I've been guilty too of sitting in audiences and been like, well, yeah, I could make something pretty too with like 9 bunches of sweet pea, right? But this is something I have made. I have made this for brides. I've put 1.5 to 2 bunches of sweet pea in something. Notice there's no greenery, right? It's a little bit more one-sided. It's a little bit more structural. So using lots of line is going to be important. And I have a rubber band on here that I'll just clip off. And I'm going to introduce you in a brief moment to Oasis Bind-It tape if you're not already a believer. Whew, it's amazing. And it has just transformed my bouquet making, and I'll show you here why. So lots of clustering and terracing, of course, always into the spiral. This guy was a little sad yesterday too, so I'll give him another life. But lots of terracing and clustering, lots of groupings. We're not doing like polka dotted, right? We're doing lots of dense clusters. So I've got a lot of lavender on this side, a little bit more red polka dotted through, and I'm coming out through the front of the bouquet like so, just creating lots of layers and texture. So I want to show you this amazing tape. It's called Oasis Bind-It tape. If you're not best friends with this, I hope you will be. And I asked Kelly Mace, who's here from Oasis, I heard a rumor on Facebook that somebody said this was discontinued, and I literally gasped out loud. I think my husband was like, "Are you okay in there?" I was so devastated, and Kelly has confirmed that it is not discontinued, and I was so relieved. It comes in white and green. It's a silicone-based tape. Now that is a type of plastic, but you use so little of it. It runs about $11 a roll. That's typically what I found at wholesalers, and I stockpile this. I teach all my bouquet classes with it because it's totally transformed how I make bouquets. I'll show you why. So I have no mechanics on this. I'm just gonna use this one little piece of tape. And I peel the backing off, like we talked about. Now, bind-it tape sticks to itself. It's self-fusing. So it's not tacky like Oasis waterproof tape, which can sometimes damage fragile flowers like sweet pea and fleshier things. So what's amazing about this is it's great for soft stems. And, oh, excuse me, I have my middle finger up. I'm like, it's so great. Sorry about that. Okay, so under the thumb, we'll move on. Yes, she's filming, I'm in trouble. Okay, so we're gonna go under the thumb, remember under the thumb. I'm gonna hold it nice and tight on the binding point, okay? And I have my fingers are holding it straight up and down to the ceiling. So I'm parallel, my knuckles are parallel to the ceiling. I'm gonna pull it really, really, really tight, and I've gotta move my hand out of the way because I'm only attaching around the binding point. Remember how we talked about binding too low, tighty, loosey-goosey. Binding too high, if I don't move my hand out of the way, right, too tight. So I don't want to do all this lifting and lowering and all this work to get it to, basically not hold its shape. So that binding is critical in building better bouquets. I've got 15 minutes. Can we do it? I think so. Steal a sip of water here. I literally dropped 100 things today. So you need about this length. Peel the plastic off, and what I do is I set it safely within arm's reach of my bouquet making. So I have it ready to go. You don't want to try to be doing this while you're in the process of trying to finish your bouquet. You need to have that piece cut and ready to go. What I didn't show you, do you mind if I have it back really fast? I'm so sorry. I wanted to demo this with clematis. Okay. I never sleep that well when I travel, but this has been an exceptionally sleepless few days. So I'm so sorry. I definitely feel a little foggy today. Okay. What is so amazing about bind-it tape is it allows flexibility. So not only is this totally waterproof, it's not going to come off in the water. You can pin right through it, you can glue right to it, you can do a U-glue dash right on top of it and ribbon it. It's so incredible. But my absolute favorite thing about it is that it provides me flexibility. So I have this very fragile stem of clematis. Let me get a slightly better looking one. Now it's thin, right? Oh my God. I think that's number 20 of things I've dropped on the stage today. It's so fragile, right? A sweet pea, a very thin thing. I can go into this bouquet right into the center after it's bound, and I can guide this stem. Oh, I broke it. I knew I was gonna do it in front of all of you. Hold on. We're gonna put it on the side so I can see it a little better. I can guide this directly into the bind-it tape after it's already been bound, okay? Then I can pull it right out. So I'm gonna try again, because I do this all the time with bind-it tape. It's so amazing. I wake up in the morning, you're like, all right, I'm about to deliver this bouquet, this thing died, I gotta pull it out, let me add another sweet pea or clematis right here to the front of it. Boom, it's in there. And I'm not having to cut or tape or wire. I can literally just guide it in. Now you gotta get your hand a little deep, like I just snapped the bottom of that. But you wanna kinda guide it in, and it's amazing. And it's gonna hold in there. I mean, it's really just remarkably secure. And we don't wanna deliver anything that, is not gonna hold, because we know it, she's like, doing all the things. Okay. I mean, I did the same thing on my wedding day, so no judgment. All right, how are we on time? 15 minutes. Okay. Yes? Of course, yes. We can pass. Actually, will you pass all of this around for me? Thank you. Alice deserves a raise, you guys. She is just a godsend. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're on the Instagrams, but this bouquet is so popular that I wanted to make you a version of how to do it. Now I know this has got some juicy stuff in it, but I want to show you how to very quickly make this style. So for many years, I made a round bouquet, right? Roundy moundy, so lots of round flowers. But again, what we're seeing is more of a textural base in a similar color. So I've got my meat and potato base, I've got my white status, and I've layered just a few caviar. So yeah, there's a good amount of sweet pea in here. You don't have to use all sweet pea. You can just use, you know, some freesia. You can use anything that's kind of linear. You can use white snapdragons. I have an online course called Bouquet Bootcamp. In that course, I show this how to make this style with inexpensive flowers, like white snapdragons, white stock. Yeah, just like very basic things, but how to still get stylistically this way of designing. So I'm gonna pass this around so you can kind of take a closer look at it. This, again, has some caviar in it, but I wanna show you the approach to making this style. So we talked about the status. I'm gonna show you again how to just very quickly spiral this in your hand. I think we have time. Okay. I have these pre-cleaned. So I'm getting to layer them into my hand, head to the left, stem to the right, and I'm just gonna build, and I know I told you not to use the long ones, but this is what I got, so we're using it. All into the same binding point. I am right-handed. Kathy, I'm glad you asked that question because if you're right-handed, you always build in your left hand, always. If you try to build in your right, it actually becomes very confusing. I find that this is really the most effective technique. So head to the left, stem to the right. You can just get a nice, number 25 down on the ground. Here we go. Might as well just hung out on the floor today, seeing that that's where all my flowers have ended up. Just sat down on the stage. Okay. So very quick, lift and lower, just getting a nice little base here. Here's my clippers. I put all this here so you couldn't see. I'm so sorry. Here, let me just cover all of my, let me move this. Okay, so we've got a little base, nothing too crazy. You could do this with limonium, you could do this with whatever. And then all you're doing is taking your caviar, 1 or 2 or 3, however many can be budgeted for, and you're just, again, softening your hand just a little bit, gliding them in. You're just gonna create like little different levels over the top. I like to cluster my material. There is a rhyme and a reason for clustering. We don't have time to have a lengthy conversation about the golden ratio, but it is actually a fascinating and wonderful topic around asymmetrical stem placement. So when we group and cluster, we are actually mimicking more closely how nature grows versus more symmetry. So we want to group and cluster because visually, it feels more aligned with what we actually see in nature. And I have like a whole asymmetrical stem placement guide we created of, you know, if you have 3 stems ratioed, you're gonna cluster 2 on one side, 1 on the other. If you have 5 stems of something, you're gonna put a cluster of 3 on one side and a cluster of 2 on the other side. You see how that kind of asymmetrical placement starts to flesh out? And then you can do, like, here we go, here's a snapdragon, right? Like little hit or miss sometimes on the snaps. I always put my line flowers typically on the perimeter of my bouquet. That allows me to frame the mass flowers or the round flowers in the center. But we just get a little bit of caviar. Do you see how fast this can come together? We don't have to like be heartbroken about bouquet making. It cannot be so painful. Okay, super simple, nothing overdone, over-designed. But yes, those were already cleaned. However, I want you to see how fast this can come together. Little rubber band around this, and out the door, you know. 125, 150, call it good. Cool?
So are you not coloring a lot?
I'm sorry?
Do you not color a lot on your wedding work?
Can I have the back? Sorry. Let me show you. Great question. What's your name? Michelle. Great question. So Michelle asked, are you collaring? Yes and no. So this is a longer, I don't have the time to get into it, but this is a longer conversation about the form of bouquets now. What I typically did for many years, Michelle, is I would take round flowers and I would sort of, you know, we get kind of obsessed with this neckline, like we need to round it. Some of you might be like, squirming in your chair that I haven't like put a rose here, or here, or here, or here, right? To like fill the hole, to fill the space. And what I have found in discovering how other people make bouquets and my own discovery is that what I do now, which saves me time and product and it actually allows you to see every bloom, is, and I didn't demonstrate it well in this bouquet, but I'll show you just really, really quickly, is that I'm essentially inverting my bouquets, so it's sort of an upside down triangle. So I'm placing typically a spray rose very deep or a carnation deep or status or something that's a pocket of color low in the center, and then I terrace my stems up in the spiral, up, oh, number 26. Okay. Up and away from the center like this, okay? Then I rotate and I do the same thing in 3 parts. So I'm essentially making like an isosceles triangle, and I'm terracing, and oftentimes as florists, and I know this because I've literally taught this to thousands of people, that we are obsessed with rounding it down. It's like our brain loves that symmetry. We cannot break away from that unless we tell ourselves, nope, terrace up, terrace up, terrace up. So yesterday in the hands-on, just for a couple of you, I just tweaked your roses ever so carefully to terrace them in this direction. So I have like a little belly button, and then I'm terracing up and away from the center. And then I'm finishing, to answer your question, I'm finishing with line. So I'll take another line and do sort of what I call a reverse implied line, because this is an implied line, right? It's an imaginary line in the mind's eye. I'm taking another line underneath the base of that. This could be a little piece of greenery, filler, something linear. I don't have any up here. Like, if I had a piece of filler from this bouquet, I would use that same filler down below. And I'm just doing that in 3 areas, and then I'll have some vines or something kind of linear spilling out. So that's, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of the gist of it. But it is a totally different way. I trashed this, so I won't pass this one around. Unless you want to remake it for me, but don't worry about it. I think that we've got it, we've seen enough. They're like, we've seen enough of this crazy lady. Okay. I have 6 minutes. We're gonna make this so fast. Orchids are in, Phalaenopsis are huge, like huge, 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 huge. And I just don't think they're going anywhere. I love to cut them off of a plant. So these little minis are great for bouquets. They're hardier and they don't bruise or break as easily. You can take a rose stem. If you need to extend the length, this is what I always do. I take a 20 gauge wire, fold it in half, place it over the top. We've got an example for you, so we'll pass it around. And I just anchor it to this stem. The reason that I do this instead of like a hyacinth or a wire is I prefer a natural stem to cut into, and it's the exact same color as this stem. So what we did yesterday is we took a bunch of these off plants, we placed them in a vase, we took a plastic bag, we sprayed it heavily inside the plastic bag with water. You take the whole plastic bag over the top, and they came out very turgid and very hydrated today. So that's called a hydration chamber. Some of you are familiar with that. It works beautifully with tropicals. So anytime you're using them in bouquet, pre-do them, get them wired and cut up. Here, we can pass this around. And then just put a little bit of floral tape around that, light brown or dark green, and it works out great. Okay, so 2 options here for you. This is a more parallel technique where you're sort of stacking stems, but this style is very popular. Are you guys seeing this on Pinterest? I don't know if your clients are bringing this. So it's very structural, lots of stacking and terracing. Callas are like having their moment right now. It feels like a weird throwback to my early flower days. So callas, interesting greens, the weirder the better. The snake allium is huge, and this large amaranthus is huge. Lots of drippy, drapey, and upright. These are more one-sided bouquets, lots of orchids, lots of, just careful with the callas here. We can pass that guy around. So I also made a version of a cascade or a presentation bouquet with the same type of ingredients. So lots of line flower. I put them in a bit of a spiral, so head to the left, stem to the right, and then placing underneath the spiral this direction so she can hold it this way. Like, these gals are loving this like very dramatic look. So she can actually hold this, it's crazy, but she can hold this upright, which they love. She can hold it this way, or she could technically hold it this way. It doesn't look as polished as like a normal cascade. But lots of tropicals, maybe just a little bit of this vine. This is called Confederate jasmine. Not my favorite, I sort of prefer the other, but I do love how like wiry and wild this is. I just have a little chenille stem on here, so you can feel free to like move some stems around, kind of play with it a little. Pretend that you're Miss America. Okay, I think I have 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. Lastly, for today, I want to encourage you to consider using the spiral in your larger scale work. So the beauty of this little chenille stem, I can just unwrap this. So you can take, if you have a large wedding and you have large trumpet vases or cylinders or whatever vase you have, you can travel to the venue with these large vases, or maybe you're doing an installation in your shop, and you can just simply take a lot of line flower, something leggy, something like a gladiola, a long delphinium, and just spiral it, head to the left, stem to the right. Just clean it up. Very easy to do. Literally just this progression of laying these stems over each other. You're keeping your hand soft. There's no over gripping. There's no crying and bouquet making. We can just build better bouquets using good professional mechanics and technique. It's all about ingredient selection, right? If you don't know the 4 flower categories, I teach a free class on this. You can go to my website, thefloralcoach.com. Go watch the free class. I walk you through what the 4 flower categories are and why you need them, why they're gonna change how you design, because what you're doing is just simply solving a design problem. You're filling space, you're figuring out, what you need to, how tall you need to go. Do you need a blue line? Do you need a yellow round? And that simplifies how you order, it simplifies how you design, it helps you solve that design problem so much easier. So if you have something big and large, I'm not a particularly strong person, and I don't have very big hands, right? And I just can simply turn this around and shake it out, put a little very simple piece of wire or chenille stem on this, travel with it in a bucket, several of them in buckets, get my vases to the venue, fill them with water there from the nice kitchen staff that lets you use their sink, and then chop it and just drop it in. I've got some incredible stories of designers who forgot like a wedding date, or like we just make mistakes. A designer, old student of mine, got in a car accident on the way to a wedding. All the bouquets were damaged. She had to remake them all in like 15 minutes. And she said, Amy, if I hadn't taken your class, I would have been really screwed, because she just whipped everything out. And same thing with the designer who forgot an important event date. She had about an hour and a half to make 60 pieces. And she got her designer, and she said, okay, I need you to clean all this stock. And then she threw the sweet pea in, and they just spiral, chop and drop, and they did it. They delivered it in time. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I could talk so long, clearly, about bouquet making. Please let the organizers know what was helpful to you. This is a big investment to bring designers and fly them around the country and put them up in hotels and buy all their products. So please let them know if this was helpful and useful for you. You can follow along if you're interested in some free content at thefloralcoach.com. We blog, we write content all the time about care and handling and color theory. We have so many free resources for you. I do have some courses, but there's such an abundance of good knowledge just available to you if you want to learn more about my approach to design. Thank you for your attentiveness. I feel like this was such a lively audience and lots of nodding and smiles, and I appreciate you making this a wonderful experience for me. And thank you for being here. And let me know if you have any questions. And thank you to Alice. She's been amazing.
Yes, thank you very much,
Yes.
Alice. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, the Wisconsin Florists Foundation, for bringing Amy here. Usually this is the part of the show where you kind of come up on stage and swarm her with questions about all of the bouquets, but they're all kind of out there right now. So I guess feel free, like, keep passing them around, look at them for a little bit. We do, however, have to kind of move a little bit quickly out of this space so that the caterers can get everything set up for lunch. So please be mindful of that, but absolutely feel free to ask some questions. Feel free to kind of like poke around at the bouquets, take pictures, do whatever you need to do, but then mosey on down to the trade show where you can get the raffle tickets from the lovely Wendy. It is a 50-50 raffle. I accidentally won it last night. But it will be, yeah, I accidentally won it last night. That is with Rhonda and Wendy over there in the corner. If you started placing an order with your wholesaler at the trade show, maybe head back to that booth once we've asked Amy all of our questions. Check out all of the rest of our lovely, lovely sponsors and all of our wholesalers, and then we will be meeting back here for the luncheon and our annual meeting, including a keynote speech from Derek Myers, which we all know how much I love Derek Myers and am interested in hearing his state of the industry address here. So, but one last time, let's give it up for Amy and Alice and the Wisconsin Florist Foundation.
Do you mind grabbing these?